Beanie is back. Big Deke news. Warning, what you're about to witness is disturbing, to say the least, and may make you puke upon seeing it. So if you can't handle that, go watch one of my other videos. Sign off this one, go watch another one of my videos, or just, bypass this and go to the next topic. But here it is. This tweet breaks down the final 5 Kevin Colbert draft classes. With Marvin Leal and Mark Robinson being cut, only 6 of the 37 picks remain from the final 5 years of the Kevin Colbert era. Brutal. Hashtag Steelers. And yet there are still sabotage deniers out there. Look at these last 5 draft classes of the Kevin Colbert era. My God. And even the ones that are kept, it's like Mason, Highsmith, Freiermuth, Loudermilk, Calvin Austin, and Connor Hayward. And you can see they're color coordinated to indicate how good of a player they are. Some of these might even be a stretch. Highsmith is great. Yeah, maybe for a third-round pick. He had that one season with 14 sacks. He's consistently hovering around 7-8 sacks a season. That's solid. Okay, I guess so. But he's probably more, you would consider him an above-average edge rusher. Pat Freiermuth listed as above average. Among starters, he's average. If you had to go 1 through 32, he's around 14, 15 right now. But if you're considering that multiple tight end sets are used, multiple tight ends are used with most teams out there, if you wanted to consider it between 1 through 64, Muth is above average. He's, you could have that debate right now for Muth. Mason Rudolph, average. Yeah, that's probably fair. Just considering his career. Loudermilk, below average. Yeah, Connor Hayward, below average. Yeah, either average or below average. Considering his role. Calvin Austin, average. Yeah, that's where we're at, though. Everyone else is literally gone. Terrell Edmonds, Devin Bush, Minka. Now, that was a nice trade. That was a nice trade to have him. We got an all-pro safety. Minka was one of, if not the best safety for the time that he was here. He's no longer here, so that's, a little deceiving. Najee Harris, because we got Jalen Ramsey in return for Minka as well. You got to consider that. Najee Harris, that was very disappointing pick, and then the Pickett draft. Pickett ain't here. Pickens. Who would have thought with the Pickett draft? Calvin Austin and Connor Hayward, the 2 guys that are still here only after 3 years, between Pickett and Pickens, even Leal. Just insane, man. But 4 of these drafts, 18, 19, 20, and 21, Big Ben was still here. Could you imagine if Omar Khan was the GM during that time? Maybe Colbert should have hung it up about 4 or 5 years earlier, and we would have had some Omar Khan drafts for Ben's later years. Disappointing to say the least. You know what? The other pick that I'm noticing is Kevin Dotson. He actually might be, considering the spot we got him, one of the better picks out of those last 5 draft classes. But he's no longer here because of how the coaching staff mismanaged him. Others like Diontae Johnson, he got a second contract for a third-round pick. That was objectively good. Pickens as well. We drafted him in the second round, got production out of him, still traded him away, going up on a contract year for a third-round pick in return. Dan Moore for a 4th-round pick, being a starting left tackle. There are, objectively some good picks for where they were drafted, where they were slotted at. But at the same time, you still would like for some of these guys to be around more long-term and actually be the foundation for your team. Too much chaos going on, too much, I guess you could say, just bad picks from a fit standpoint in the Steeler culture, but also there's definitely mismanagement from a coaching staff standpoint too. But now with Omar Khan, so since 2022, Omar Khan taking over, I think these last few draft classes have been phenomenal. From the early looks of them, we have retained a lot of these picks from the Omar Khan draft classes. Now, still remains to be seen. I think we'll get a better judgment of how they were 5, 6, 7 years down the line. But also even Tomlin righting the ship too with the coaching staff changes and bringing some competence in here like Arthur Smith and the other guys that we have on offense, whether you're talking quarterback coaches, receiver coaches, and so forth. So, yeah, I think we're at the best spot that we can be in 2025, considering the mess that we've dealt with, but also put upon ourselves over the last, 6-7 years, whether you're talking draft class, player development, coaching staff incompetence. We're trying to get it right 2025, and hopefully it does get right, and then we're on our way into the future, 2026 and beyond, depending on what next year's draft class looks like and what quarterback we bring in here. Maybe Rodgers stays. Rodgers doubled down that there's potential he might be playing again. He said he's on a 1-year deal, so he's accepting of the fact that this might be it, but he wants to see what things look like in the offseason, and who knows. I mean, his tune has changed a little bit from whenever he answered that question on McAfee. I will say that. So he must have really liked his Latrobe experience. He must really like being a Steeler up to this point. But all I'm going to say is let's just see how the season plays out, because we're in this honeymoon phase. Everything's good. We haven't even played a game yet. We're 0-0. Let's see how the vibes are and what things look like 17 regular season games in and potentially a playoff run. But again, I am completely open and would be cool with Rodgers coming back if he shows that he still got it, has a good season, and the vibes are good. Let's get to, so yesterday was cut down day, and I said we would look at some of the outside guys that were cut and if anyone would potentially make sense for the Steelers to bring in. That, and also guys that may be available via trade. And there's really, I'm not going to lie, I looked through all the cuts, all the names that were out there, and there's really only one position that still could make sense for the Steelers to add to, and that is receiver. And I'm not going to front. There's not a lot of guys that are ready available that, either went through the whole cut down day process or that are still out there in free agency that really moved the needle. I think trade would be the biggest splash type of move the Steelers could make here. And obviously, there's a reason that guys are available via free agency, and there's reasons why guys are still on teams. So it would be a little bit tougher to make a trade happen and more worthwhile to make a trade happen because you feel like those guys are bigger upgrades to your team than just picking up someone that's available 2 weeks before the regular season starts. So there's that. But you look at all the other positions that we got, outside of the secondary being a little bit light, and we went over that. And as I said in the intro, Beanie Bishop's back, so we ain't stressing about that as much. He comes back to the practice squad, and it's very likely that we're going to be re-signing Chuck Clark once we put Will Howard on IR. So I'm not really stressing about the secondary. Corey Trice is still chilling there, too. We have his rights. He's on IR. Linebacker, what do we got to worry about with that? Offensive line, I saw a bunch of the names that are out there. I don't think anyone that we would pick up that got cut is necessarily an upgrade over what we have in-house. Just really receiver, because you could talk about the 5 guys we have and say, yeah, there's maybe a missing piece. We can maybe add an extra guy that would be the 6th dude on our roster, and he would bring a different element compared to what we have. But, man, the guys that are available, not really getting me excited. It would definitely have to be someone via trade, because if I go through the ranking list, the top 4 guys on my ranking list they would all have to be trades. But here's who's out there that is getting some buzz and a little bit of a connection to the Steelers. Well, one would be MVS, but he just got picked up by the 49ers. Legit, it seemed like the Steelers were interested. He's a former Rodgers receiver with the Packers, deep threat, kind of that Gabe Davis mold, but he has also some Super Bowl experience as he's been on some of these Chiefs teams in recent years. So that would have been a bad pickup. I'm not even going to front. Wouldn't have been that enthused about it, but you could do worse than signing an MVS on a vet minimum contract, especially since he's already got a rapport with Aaron Rodgers. But over the last couple of years, he really hasn't done much of anything. He signed with the 49ers, though. There were talks that it was between the Steelers and the 49ers for MVS's next team. He goes with the 49ers. Probably smart by him, too, with Ayuk missing time. He might have easily an early role in that offense, whereas with us, we kind of got our top 4 guys, and then you add the tight ends in the mix. MVS would just be a depth guy, just insurance policy. You have a relationship with Rodgers. If there's some injuries, that's your path to making, not necessarily making the squad, but actually getting snaps and being out there on offense. Whereas with the Niners, like I said, with Ayuk being down, them having some wide receiver issues, he might be like their third or fourth receiver already as he steps in there day one. But that's not happening. Malachi Corley got cut from the Jets. Apparently, he was Rodgers' favorite receiver in last year's draft.
I love what Joe has done. I love who we brought in. Malachi was my favorite receiver in the draft. Now, he might not have been the best on paper in the draft, but I really felt like he was going to fit in with what we're trying to do in his mindset and his ferocity.
But he didn't do anything for the Jets. And when Rodgers was there, all of Rodgers' production and his touchdowns and stuff didn't go to Malachi Corley. I think he only had like 16 yards for the whole season. And with him, he's kind of an unrefined receiver right now. He's more of the Deebo Samuel type of dude, like gadget player. You get him on jet sweeps, you try to get him the ball in space. So I don't know if we really need that. We got guys like Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin and Jonnu Smith that does that. We need just straight up speed, deep threat, and a decent route runner, a guy that Rodgers can trust in that category too. And Malachi Corley doesn't fit the bill. So even though Rodgers is saying he's a big fan of Corley, the fit wouldn't really make too much sense. If we brought him in and he's a flyer and we have him developing for the season, that's a different story. But in terms of impact for 2025, I wouldn't get my hopes up there. Other guys that are still out there, we talked about Gabe Davis. Trey Palmer got cut from the Buccaneers. Apparently the Steelers had interest in him in the past. But he's one of those dudes, it's like, cool, would you have 300 yards your rookie year last year? You even did worse than that. He's fast, but I mean, as soon as we sign him, he's our fifth or sixth receiver. He's not. What I'm saying is, him nor Malachi Corley, they're not inserting themselves in this receiver room and making waves where you're questioning, oh man, do we need to get this guy more snaps, or what type of role are they going to have day one? What type of stuff could we script up for these receivers? It's like, no, it's just you're just bringing in guys. You're just bringing in guys as depth, and that's not. I mean, we could use the extra receiver, I guess, but we actually also don't need it because of Connor Hayward and us keeping those extra tight ends. So unless we're bringing in someone that has their own type of role or own type of niche carved out, where you feel like, okay, that brings something different, we could get snaps for that guy, then I don't think we need to go out of our way. Now, there are some names that can do that, but all those guys are available via trade, and some of them are reportedly not even available. They're available to us, Steeler fans, because we want it to happen, but the teams that they're on, these wide receivers are saying they're not available, like a Romeo Doubs. Juwan Jennings with the 49ers. That was a name that's been brought up in the last couple months of potentially being a trade guy. But it seems like they got their contract situation figured out, and he's going to be playing for the Niners this year. Alec Pierce, Jacoby Myers. That's another one. He just requested a trade from the Raiders. Who knows what happens? Raiders saying he's not available. They're not trading him, but Jacoby Myers is pissed off about his contract. Like, that's a name. Myers, Dobbs, Pierce, Juwan Jennings. Those would be difference makers. Those would definitely move the needle. That would get your antenna up and say, okay, these guys are serious receivers here. These guys can have a role. These guys are upgrades in certain aspects over what we already have. But outside of that, all right, could we pick up Gabe Davis for the vet minimum? We've been talking about that. He's visited with the team a couple times. Sure. Odell, nah, I mean, come on. Make headlines. It'd be splash move. People definitely be talking about it, but is Odell better than literally anyone in our receiver room right now? Maybe Ben Skowronek from just a receiving standpoint, but Ben Skowronek, good blocking receiver. And I'll tell you what, though, anytime he did get the ball last year, anytime he was asked to catch a pass, throw a route out there, he was reliable. I got to give him that. Diontae Johnson just got released. Like, no. I think people are trying to bring that up. Reunion. No, I'm good on that. Absolutely. If Kenny is getting the crown for being passed around via trade like a Kardashian, like Diontae's getting the crown for being passed around via sign and being cut after, because that's the wave Diontae's been on. It's been, like 5 or 6 teams over the last year? Just crazy. If the Browns are cutting Diontae, the Browns, And they need receivers bad. Like, look at their depth chart right now. They need receivers. After Jerry Jeudy, they're hurting. If they're cutting Diontae Johnson, I think it's just time. It might be over for Diontae. As we were saying with Pickett, life comes at you fast in the NFL. It's like, careful what you wish for, because this could happen over the course of 365 days, over the course of a year. You could be looked at in your current situation as a real impact type of player. Diontae was, at the time, last offseason, before he was traded to the Panthers, like our wide receiver too, is between him and Pickens, 1A, 1B, but I think Pickens overtook the number 1 spot. We all saw that at the end of 2023, but Diontae literally was our number 2 receiver. Number 2 receiver. Guy that was getting 800-900 yards a year. Was considered one of the better route runners in the league, create separation. His rep was solid outside of some of the drama he would bring up or like cryptic Instagram stuff. I mean, he had a role though. Like, you could rely on him for something. And then he asks out, and this is where he's at. Out of the league. Kenny Pickett was potentially going to be the future here. Was going to have to deal with some competition, us signing Russ. And even if we would give the job to Russ, which is what it was looking like, all signs were pointing to Kenny being the backup for Russ, even though we called it an open competition. Listen, you were one injury away of getting right back out there on the field, and Russ did get injured, and you could retake your spot of being the future franchise and prove everyone wrong. But now you're all over the place and just being a journeyman backup. So there's a lesson in all this. There's definitely some sort of lesson. I think it's be careful what you wish for. Life comes at you fast in the NFL. I guess Allen Lazard, too, that's another name that we could talk about as a guy we could trade for, but because of the connection to Rodgers. My ranking would be this. I would go Jacoby Myers, Romeo Doubs, Alec Pierce, and then Lazard. That's how I would rank it in guys that I would want to bring in here. But not a coincidence, all those guys would have to be brought in via trade. They're not just easily available. You could sign them for some cheap contract. No, you'd have to trade for them, and it doesn't really seem like the teams that have those players are looking to trade them right now. So that kind of sucks. Other names that were released outside of receiver, and this is what I mean. This doesn't really do anything for me. Juju Brents, a Kenyon Green from the Eagles, former first-round guard. Mike Hilton, we know that name. Isaiah Simmons was cut from the Packers. Are these guys doing anything for us? Look at our roster right now. Do you really think these guys, any of those dudes, are making impact for us like that we should drop the last player on our depth chart at any of those positions for any of those names? I'm good. No, I'm good with what we got outside of maybe adding a Romeo Doubs, and Alec Pierce, or Jacoby Myers. I don't think we got to do much. We got Beanie Bishop back. We're going to make some other practice squad returns where guys that were just cut yesterday are going to come back. Probably a Dylan Cook, so that's going to add to our O-line depth. James Pierre, who knows, he might be back too on the practice squad. It's another reason why I don't think we got to worry about our secondary depth like that. It's really it, man. It's really it. You guys let me know, though. Am I missing anything? Is there someone out there that you really think Steelers should be looking out after? I don't think so. I think the team's kind of good. I think there's a shift or a little move that needs to be made, like Will Howard to IR. We bring back Chuck Clark. Outside of that, I could rock with these 5 receivers. But if we want to get Jacoby Myers in here, fine. Obviously, we do. There's some interest. We have some interest. Now, I don't know what corresponding move happens if we bring in another receiver. Or if it's just we bring in another receiver, Will Howard to IR, and we don't bring back Chuck Clark. I don't think that would be smart. I think we would have to cut someone else. We would have to cut someone else. Bring back Chuck. We got to bring back Chuck Clark. It would be stupid for us not to, I think. Actually, you know what? We have an update here. Talking about Beanie Bishop coming back on the practice squad. We got some other big names, other notable names that some people may have been concerned about, some people not concerned about. But guys that were on the Steelers just yesterday and made headlines whenever they were cut, they're right back on the Steelers. Anyway, like there's nothing to sweat about. They're just right back. All's well that ends well, I guess. Robert Woods. Now, I wasn't that stressed if we lost Robert Woods, but he's back on the Steelers. I guess, good insurance for the receiver room. Keyshawn Williams, the guy that flashed a little bit in preseason, another receiver. Tight end J.J. Galbraith. O-lineman Stephen Jones. I have no clue who the hell he is.
Who?
DeMarvin Leal is back. He's on the practice squad. We mentioned Beanie Bishop. James Pierre. You could do much worse than having James Pierre, Beanie Bishop, DeMarvin Leal, and Robert Woods on your practice squad. We're building like a practice squad all-star team here. And then Sebastian Castro, too. A lot of people were high on Sebastian Castro. Thought he had a good preseason. So I wanted to give you guys that update. I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't give you guys that, because this has all been taking place as I've been recording this vid. Just wanted to check it out, though, before I posted. There's some additional names, though, that are back with the Steelers on the practice squad. They're not on the 53, but they're still Steelers. So, yeah, that is officially it for today's vid. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Stay chilling. Peace.